Hello, everyone. My name is Abisai Real, and I will be presenting on plasma gasification and how it could reduce our landfill waste. But before diving into what plasma gasification is and how it works, first I want to go over how we are currently managing our waste globally. So, current data shows that this year, 2024, roughly about 55% of our global waste is disposed into landfills. About 20% is recycled, 10% is used for composting, about 8% of our waste is converted into energy, and 7% of our waste is managed using other alternative methods such as anaerobic digestion, source reduction, and specialized waste disposal for hazardous materials. Now, we don't want to get too negative while looking at this data, as a decent percentage of our waste is managed in a positively impactful way. As we saw, 20% is recycled, 10% is used for composting, and an 8% is converted into energy. However, it just can't be ignored that the larger amount of our waste is just dumped into landfills, creating these clumps of trash all around the world. And data shows that every year we generate around 2.12 billion tons of waste. That is just a ridiculous number that continues to be stacked year after year. Let's analyze really quickly the negative impacts that landfills have. So, first off, landfills affect climate change. They produce methane and nitrous oxide that are both greenhouse gases with a high global warming potential. Now, methane is produced by organic waste like food, yard waste, and paper that decomposes in our landfills. And methane is up to 35 times more potent than carbon dioxide as a driver of climate change over the past century. Now, nitrous oxide, on the other hand, is emitted from solid waste combustion facilities, and it has about 310 times the warming potential of carbon dioxide. Landfills also affect our health. Studies from the National Institutes of Health show that landfills can cause health issues such as coughing, irritation in the eyes, nose, and throat, headaches, nausea, difficulties breathing, faster heartbeats. It can induce fatigue and it can induce vomiting as well. And this comes as an effect of landfill gases seeping into the air and indoor spaces. Now, landfills also create toxins that could be inhaled or ingested, and these can increase the risk of cancer. Landfills can also trigger or worsen individuals with conditions such as asthma, heart attacks, and bronchitis. Landfills also affect wildlife in many ways. For example, the process of making a landfill involves clearing large areas of land that directly destroy natural habitats for various wildlife species. Also, the amount of food waste attracts large numbers of animals of various species, and this can disrupt natural food chains. And on top of that, these animals are ingesting toxic substances like plastics, chemicals, and other toxins that could poison these animals. This would also change how they behave as they begin to rely on landfills to survive rather than rely on the natural food chain that already exists. And diseases can also be easily spread amongst them, wiping them out as they are consuming such harmful substances at such close contact with each other. Landfills also take a large amount of space. The average size of a landfill is just about 600 acres, and current data shows that there are about 48,000 active landfills around the world. And these landfills will be sticking around for a while because waste takes a long time to decompose. That is another negative impact. For example, food can take days, weeks, even months to decompose. Paper can take somewhere around 2 to 6 weeks. Aluminum cans, 80 to 100 years. Disposable diapers, 250 to 500 years. Plastic can take up to 1,000 years. A glass bottle could take a mind blowing million years to decompose. And a styrofoam cup could take over 500 years. So, taking into consideration all these negative impacts that we have just reviewed, we could say that one of our biggest enemies in waste management is time, the time that it takes for waste to decompose. So, how is it that we can combat that time? Plasma gasification. Plasma gasification is a process that could help us in our battle against time better than our current waste management strategies that exist. Essentially, this process utilizes a plasma torch that can decompose matter, such as the waste found in our landfills, right away, where otherwise it could take hundreds upon hundreds of years to decompose just lying around in a landfill. So, this process converts our organic matter into syngas and some slag as the remaining byproduct. How does it work? Well, a plasma torch that uses an inert gas like argon or in other cases nitrogen, where the plasma torches are a lot larger, are powered by an electric arc. And this inert gas is ionized passing through the plasma created by the arc. And these torches temperature can range somewhere around 3600 Fahrenheit to 25,200 Fahrenheit. The waste is then poured into the chamber, as you can see on the diagram that's up right now, and the organic matter is then catalyzed into syngas with slag as a remaining byproduct, as we have already mentioned before. Now, there's an outlet that you could see down there at the bottom of the chamber that collects the slag and the remaining scrap. And there's also another outlet where the syngas is collected right there at the top, as you can see as well. Now, the slag that is collected can actually be used as a construction material, as once this slag hardens, it can be granulized and then later be used as a form of concrete. The syngas, on the other hand, can be used as energy like natural gases. It could be used to generate power in very similar ways. For example, it could be used to produce electricity or liquid fuels like methanol. Now, this is an extremely impressive technology that completely vaporizes our waste, as in the extreme conditions that the plasma gasification process creates, can allow for molecular dissociation to occur by breaking apart molecular bonds. So essentially, it's just breaking down our waste down into its atoms and completely decomposing our waste right away, as in the other case, it would just decompose over a course of hundreds of years in a landfill. So, while researching about plasma gasification, I had found actually that the United States military had put it into use. PODS is what they were using, and PODS stands for Plasma Arc Waste Destruction System. And it is a system that the United States Navy has implemented in their Gerald R. Ford class aircraft carriers. And essentially, what they do is exactly the same as we have reviewed before. But what they do is they shred down their waste to a powder like substance, which they then feed into the plasma chamber, where the powder is then completely obliterated. And then the resulting gases are then immediately quenched to prevent toxic fumes from forming. These are then cleaned and released to the atmosphere safely. Now, the system has proved very useful for the United States Navy, so useful, in fact, that they are beginning to implement this technology into all of their Gerald R. Ford class aircraft carriers that are currently being built. So, now that we have reviewed how plasma gasification works, we can begin to look at the pros and cons of it. So, one of the pros of using plasma gasification is that it actually tackles that initial problem that we had talked about in the beginning, the problem of time. So, waste takes a really long time to decompose, but with plasma gasification in the picture, we don't have to wait anymore. We can just instantly decompose our waste without letting it reach to a landfill, which will create more harm to our environment. As well as plasma gasification is a very safe process. No harmful emissions or toxic fumes of any type are emitted from this process. So it is a safe means to destroy hazardous materials or any other type of medical materials as well. And as we had mentioned before as well, the byproducts of plasma gasification, slag and syngas, can actually be put into use. So slag can be, once it's hardened, it could be granulated and turned into a form of concrete. And syngas could actually be converted into energy, just like natural gas. Like it could be used to produce electricity or create methanol. Now, looking at the cons of plasma gasification, they mostly all center around the same problem, which is cost. Not only is the initial investment for plasma gasification really high in comparison to other alternatives like landfills and incineration plants, uh, but to operate these facilities are actually very high as well, and there's little or even negative net energy production when you start to think about all the energy inputs that actually go into powering a facility that uses plasma gasification, as well as these facilities will frequent maintenance, and there's limited plant availability as well as there are limited facilities that exist. There's only 5 in the world. So, in conclusion, plasma gasification can completely change the way we look at waste management. In general, our current solution for waste management is to just dump our waste into landfills. But in doing so, we harm ourselves, we harm wildlife and the environment in general. But plasma gasification offers to completely get rid of our waste and put it to good use, as we have seen with syngas being used to generate energy and slag that could be used to create construction materials. It's almost as if we're being offered a reset button to maybe even bring down our waste close to zero. But however, it is an extremely costly process to continuously maintain and operate. But when you start to think about it, the amount of damage that we have inflicted on our planet over the years with all the waste that we have generated, it is very high. And so the price to pay for a high amount of damage seems fit to also be very high. So, however costly plasma gasification is, it does offer a much needed solution that we need right now when it comes to waste management. Thank you so much for listening, and that is the end of my presentation.